And the happiest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, David Toulis, because I'm here with you, my listener, on the David Toulis Show every weekday here at 1 o'clock. There's a great deal to hear about today, and I'm glad you're giving me just 5 minutes of your time. The 5 minutes that you get will be what I would say in God's providence is the 5 minutes you need to hear. And if you're going to be joining in later on, well, we'll be here with terrific analysis. We're going to have a free market analysis of the pending disaster in the American economy, which is choked with debt, which has become unworkable. And it is the whole top of the economy is being fed off of by cartels and private corporate nonprofit and even philanthropic interests and groups that are unable to see the larger common weal, if you will, of the country and its people. They are feeding themselves with good contracts, super low interest rates in our artificially depressed economy, and money is being pumped like crazy into the system, and there hasn't been any soaking back up of the excess that came in 2008 with the rush to liquidity from the Federal Reserve System. So we're going to hear about that today, and we're going to also. Well, I'm not going to give away the store here, okay? I'm not going to tell you in advance what we're going to talk about. And even if I had President Trump in person here at the studio, I wouldn't let you know necessarily at the beginning of the show. And the reason I do that is because you hear only what you are fit to hear and set to hear. And people don't make appointments to listen to the radio, but they will listen to the David Toulis Show if they can, and they will. And so I understand the limits of my medium as a passive medium, but here. In the person on the Dave Toulis Show, if you're here and you're listening, it is immediate and unstoppable, and there's no option on your part. You just have to take it in, okay, or punch, right? You can always punch. And I'm want to mention my great disappointment and how my disappointment came to me late. The disappointment is over Chattanooga City Council. The meeting yesterday, Tuesday meeting, there are 54 a year every Tuesday, right? So there are many of them, and one should not have too much of an expectation about any one gathering of our legislative branch of government in Chattanooga. But the dealings of the evening were concluded within 15 minutes of the call to prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Of course, I'm someone who I decline to make any kind of pledge of that sort, but I stand deferentially nonetheless, as everyone else does, and I just listen, and sometimes I fiddle with my computer or something on my phone maybe, and so the business was done very, very briefly yesterday. The main topic was City Court and the effort by Carol Burrs to get a realignment of the city charter so that the city court would be handled and its manpower handled not through the charter, which is clumsy and complicated, and it's just a longer process, but by ordinance. In other words, the city passes an ordinance under its charter authority and can ordain more or less city court. And the trend that even the judges admit needs to be in the direction of less city court, maybe with the elimination of one judgeship and supporting staff. So that was business, and it was voted down 4-3. The resistance seemed to be saying that we haven't prepared enough. We haven't really studied enough how this would work. And Dr. Burrs wants to save a large part of about $2.5 million, which is the budget of that branch of city government. And we do have to have that branch because we are Americans, and we always have three branches, right? We have the executive branch, Mayor Burke, and we have the legislative branch, which is city council, representing the people, the populace, the hoi polloi, the common man, the voter, the taxpayer, the member of the corporation. That's the legislative branch. And then we have the judiciary that settles disputes. And what I'm kind of unhappy about, if you really want to know the truth, is that there is a Yeah, you do want to know the truth, right? 800-8949, 800-8949. Maybe you have a little truth to offer me, right? And that is the number to call. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a problem, I really, really like people who call me with a problem. I like hearing about people's problems, and I'm a patient listener. And depending on the scope and magnitude of the problem, we can give a lot of time to hearing about it. Okay, so don't think that just because you have a very complicated problem that we don't want to hear. And I'm always going to try to be gracious with my caller. And if it's something that's very personal or doesn't have a public import, I may scale it back and say, well, let me talk to you later about this, and you can talk to me off the air. So, but we want to hear from you. 800, that is to say 800-8949, brought to you by Nuganomics.com. There is a story about the city council meeting, and it is. I'm citing in this story the authority of the council. Okay, well, and the problem that's not being addressed is the police problem. Okay, that is the police problem, and of the public speakers, the one who spoke, Chris Dahl, who is running for county commission, was complaining about. He does complain a great deal, Chris Dahl. He was complaining about public housing and seeming inurement activities, private inurement, which is to say people who are on the payroll and somehow they're doing things that benefit themselves personally and not the larger effort. And he was kind of getting into details there, but no one was there to speak about the much larger problem that, in my estimation, seems to be being ignored, seems to be facing neglect, and that would be the management by the mayor, Andy Burke, of the police department. It is his baby. He should get credit for all good things that happen in his agency, the executive agency of police, and Mayor Burke in his second term should be getting condemnation and rebuke for misdeeds, miscreancy, abuse, harassments, killings, executions, beatings, arrests without probable cause, perjury by officers, etc., etc., etc. Some of which we have covered here on the David Toulis Show at 92.7, the Sean Hannity station, right? See the CBS radio affiliate. That's me, David Toulis, the reporter with the bow tie, the smartest man with the bow tie in Chattanooga, and I'm grateful to you. And I'm so glad. I'm just delighted to be here in our studio in East Ridge, looking at the agenda. Now, the city has authority to regulate disorderly persons. That's since 1949. That would be disorderly persons, breaches of the peace, to provide for the arrest, imprisonment, and punishment of riotous and disorderly persons within the city, and for the punishment of all breaches of the peace, noise, disturbance, or disorderly assemblies. When I hear that, I think of Diana Watt being arrested by about a gang of police officers. About 10 of them descended upon this sweating, overweight woman at a gas station off Wilcox Ave. And 4 of them were in her car trying to bind her so they could put her in the cage, right, in the car cage. A woman who had her papers out of order, or so we're to believe. Now facing a charge stacking situation, which we've analyzed at Nuganomics.com. If you want to find out what's happening in Chattanooga, you need to read and subscribe to Nuganomics.com. The council also has authority to make regulations to secure the general health of the inhabitants. Now, think about police here, okay? When we have a woman who's raped by an officer, and whose report is kept in the file without anyone thinking that there's been a crime committed here, not just an employment infraction, right? Not just an administrative misdeed in terms of employee relationship, not following policy, right? We have a policy that you don't rape women whom you arrest, right? We're talking here not about a violation of a policy by an officer, as reported first in the Chattanooga Times Free Press, a very important story. We have a crime. Okay, that is a crime, not just a violation. There is a difference. And the city has the authority, the council has the authority to make regulations to secure this general health. A woman not being raped, that is part of general health. Okay, let's just put it flat out. If you are a woman and you were raped by an officer, the general health, not just your health, right? Not just your body, your treasure, as Marie Mott refers to it, not just your treasure, but in your body and your being and your soul are in jeopardy. But the general health of the inhabitants is damaged. Okay, it's damaged representationally because you, the victim of the officer, represent the whole. You have a representative function as a victim, just as and this was a point that came to me very clearly in writing about the Hanson Melvin case. And I said, Hanson, as I was encouraging him, that's what I do. I encourage people. Okay, what I do is when you're facing the Airbnb ordinance, which is illegal, I'm here to encourage you to challenge it. Okay, my job is to give you an encouraging word about your rights and about the limits on authority from the good people. Now, not just the good people in Washington, which we identify them as the leading good people, but even good people here in Chattanooga, some of whom may occupy positions of authority, maybe in the mayor's office. These are good people, some of them, and I mean that in the good sense, right? Not in my snide sense of good people. But the city has that authority to prevent, abate, and remove nuisances. Now, police operating outside their authority, that is a nuisance. And city council, you have authority to abate the nuisance in the interest of the general health of the inhabitants, okay? Prevent, abate, and remove. Three verbs, again, implying action. Was there action yesterday in city council on these points? Was there action? Was there any verb activity, right? A verb is a movement, a word that describes an action. Were there any action words? Words that describe movement through time and space, the application of power to an object, right? And that power is something that in physics. A power is the engine in a tanker that moves it across the ocean in 6 days. Okay, you conquer the physical world in time by power. That's what power is. You take the giant turbines out of a tanker and replace that turbine with a small fishing boat engine, you've got a lot less power. Now, a propeller may turn. A propeller would probably get that boat across the ocean in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So there's less power there. So we want to talk about the application of power to make something happen, the ability to make something happen, right? God made the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. He could have done it instantaneously. And the fact that he didn't make everything exist instantly was to serve a covenantal purpose, a lesson teaching purpose that would be about the need for rest, and God restrained his power in the creation. So that's he was able to make things occur from nothing, right? Ex nihilo. All the planets, the billions of stars, every grain of sand, every microbe, and every ancestor of every microbe today, right? He created at that first moment, or at some point in that 6 day period, he made all those things, and that's power. So city council has power too, right? It's delegated power. We like to think that it's delegated from the people, and to an extent, I'd say that's probably correct. Though I would say that all uses of the sword, which is what city council ostensibly represents, that kind of a sword, is from God himself. And that's described in Romans 13 as the power of the magistrate. So we have this ordinances. And why is city council not abating a nuisance? It is an abatement problem that it faces. And there's further authority, and you can read this at Nuganomics.com just for fun, right? Just for laughs at Nuganomics.com. There are acts detrimental to public health, safety, etc. The city has the authority to define, prohibit, suppress, prevent, and regulate all acts. Okay, all acts. All means 100% of acts. That is to say, public acts and private acts. Okay, not just the private acts of homeowners and business people. And fair operators, people who run restaurants, not just those acts of private parties and corporate and business parties, but all acts, practices, conduct, okay, uses of property and all of the things whatsoever detrimental to. Okay, now what? All right, now here we come into view. Here, you, my listener, come into view in the city code. No, wait, this is the charter, chapter 2, I think it is. Health, morals, comfort, safety, convenience, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city, and to exercise general police powers under the provision of this act and the general law. So that first party, okay, we're talking about the authority of this council to do these things: health, morals, comfort, safety, convenience, or welfare. All acts, all practices, all conduct, okay, all trades. So there's I haven't mentioned every single one in that list there, but there are those are the main ones that pertain to the office of the mayor and the mayor's department, and that department consumes perhaps wastes $70 million, more than $70 million. And is there a way to cut that department in half? What would happen to Chattanooga if you cut enforcement in half? I wonder. Maybe you can give me a suggestion about that. I think here's Carol Burrs on why the city council needs to.
So there were two things. That happened. What those two things stood for. One was to get out some archaic language. That was A. The charter has a lot of archaic language in it. And so A had to do with getting rid of a city jail, justices of the peace, just old archaic language. For 4 years, we've been studying whether or not we need two divisions of city court. And so when I looked at the budget, I saw that probably was something we didn't need, as did others. What you missed was today the city judges came and talked to us at 3:00 and said that the proposal was absolutely correct. That as long as we leave ourselves open. See, what happens is you take these things out of the charter, but you do it by ordinance. You have to have a government that's limber, that can move. And you don't ever put things in charters like that anymore. And the judges agreed with that. And I don't know whether it was something to do politically or whatever, but at any rate, 4 of the colleagues agreed and 4 did not. And we were missing one. You always give people the right to make those decisions, but apparently some people on the council disagreed.
So the city council voted.
Was putting it on the agenda for charter discussion in November.
So that. Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly how the other council members saw that. I think they would not agree that we're trying to keep it from the people, as Carol Burrs, the mover on that proposal, suggests. But it's about 4 years out until something has to happen, and there is still a lot of time before that change can be made. This is David Toulis, and we are facing a vote tomorrow, and TV 9, I think it is, maybe one of the TV stations has a kind of a roundup of who's been in town. Diane Black, representative, she was at the Fox Run neighborhood on Signal Mountain yesterday. Beth Harwell, the Republican, was at the Tag plant in Chattanooga. Randy Boyd was at Champy's. These are Republicans. And then Craig Fitzhugh yesterday here in Chattanooga at the Bessie Smith Hall. Bill Lee was here on Monday, and people want to know what I say about these candidates and why. Maybe am I missing something here? Are you missing something here, David? You're not talking about these candidates. Whom should we support? Who's the best one? And it's a kind of a long story as to why I'm not getting there. And maybe I'm not getting there because I keep thinking that there are things right here in Chattanooga that if we don't work on these things here in a loco-centric perspective, thinking that Chattanooga is in fact the center of the universe, then what does it matter whether it's Fitzhugh or Boyd or Harwell or Black or Lee. Does it really matter who runs the deep state and the government, and the state and the government? Those are, in a way, they're kind of two distinct entities there. State of Tennessee versus Tennessee government, they're not the same thing. And so it's hard for me to get to the point of saying, well, I would favor Bill Lee over Beth Harwell. Don't vote for Beth Harwell. I might say that, but if I had time today, maybe I can maybe make a mention. Okay, I'm going to promise you a deep analysis, but maybe just a mention for whatever it's worth. And I don't think it'd be worth a lot. David's Holistic Radio 92.7, and now I've got some great sponsors. Hang on.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, Digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
A car crashed in Cohutta last night and a man from Cleveland runs out, according to local police. Reports say he was found hiding in a building in Tunnel Hill after he crashed his car on Old Dalton Highway. Inside the crashed vehicle, officers say they found drug paraphernalia. Brandon Lee Wright taken into custody. Good news out of Ray County. Dolores Harshbarger